Hello everyone and welcome back to our literary podcast. Today we're diving deep into the classic fairy tale Cinderella, the beautiful girl. But we're not just retelling the story, we're exploring it through the feminist lens, moral philosophical lens, and symbolic basic lens basically. So we're questioning everything we usually for granted. So now let's start a simple. Ridwan, how would you explain the core idea of the Cinderella?
In a simple sense, the core idea of Cinderella is about goodness is being rewarded. She is a kind, patient, humble, and gentle person, even when she treated unfairly. But when we look at more deeper, the story that carries an implicit meaning. The ideal woman is someone who endures suffering silently and remains polite no matter how unjust her environment is. Nothing she does changes her life. The chance come from the magic and the prince. So the story teaches us two things at once. Goodness matters, yes, but passiveness is presented as a virtue, especially for women. That's why Cinderella is both inspiring and problematic at the same time.
Interesting point. Now let's go to Rico. From a feminist view, what do you think is the biggest issue with the story, Rico?
Okay, so the biggest issue is how the story defines what makes a good woman and a bad woman. Cinderella is praised because she's quiet, obedient, hardworking, and beautiful. Meanwhile, the stepmother and the stepsisters are portrayed as bad largely because they are loud, expressive, confident, and not traditionally beautiful. Mm, the problem is the story equates femininity with silence and emotional softness, and it demonizes traits like ambition and uh, assertiveness. And feminists critique this because it reinforces gender roles that limit real women. And it tells girls they must be gentle to be lovable, and that any woman who stands up for herself is automatically the villain.
Good. Now Ridwan, let's go the philosophical for a second. So how does the moral philosophical approach help us understand the Cinderella?
Okay, it helps us to see the moral values that hidden inside the story. From the surface, we see values like patience, kindness, and forgiveness, and hope. But the moral philosophical approach forces us to ask why is this the moral, who benefits from, and what worldview does it promote it. In Cinderella, morality is tied to the reward. Like for example, she is good, so she gets the prince. But the reward reinforces traditional gender expectation. Our ultimate happiness is defined by the marriage, not how self-growth she is. Morally, the story teaches us to be passive and wait for someone powerful, usually a man, to save them. So we learn that not all morals are neutral or universal. Many can reflect the social norm of that time.
Now over to Rico. What symbol in the story stand out the most for you?
Okay, so for this one is for me, it's definitely the glass slippers. It's fragile, elegant, and unique. Just like how the story wants femininity to appear. Also, it represents perfections, but it's also breakability, which reinforces the stereotype that femininity must be delicate. And the slippers also reduce Cinderella's identity to something as simple as a foot size. and the prince recognized her not through her personality or conversation, but through a shoe. And that symbolizes how women in old narrative are often valued for their bodies, not for their minds. The glass slipper is beautiful, but it's also a symbol of weakness, of being easily broken, and of being chosen based on appearance.
All right, everyone. So here the simple one. Do you think Cinderella is more positive or more problematic?
Honestly, in my opinion, it's both. It's positive because it gives hope, it encourages kindness, and it shows that hardship doesn't last forever. But it's also problematic because it romanticizes the suffering. It suggests that if you endure cruelty silently, something magical will happen to you. In real life, that kind of passive suffering is often lead to nowhere. And that's also the beauty standard. Cinderella beauty is constantly emphasized, so the message becomes if you are beautiful and patient, you eventually be chosen by the man you love. That's a very narrow idea of happiness.
Hmm, good point. Rico, next question. What do you think about the prince role in the stories?
Okay, I think the prince is more than a symbols than a character, and he also represents salvation, escape, and status, but he lacks in depth. He doesn't know Cinderella, and she doesn't know him. Their entire relationship is built on a single night and physical attraction.
Hmm.
It teaches an unrealistic view of romance. Love heavenly happens instantly without communication or understanding, and feminist scholars criticize this because it reduces relationships to appearance. So the prince isn't looking for a partner, but he he looking for someone who fits a shoe. It's romantic on the surface, but it's shallow on underneath.
Okay, then. So let's talk about the stepmother. So what does the character represent in stepmother?
The stepmother is represent the jealousy and equality of a person, but she also represents something more deeper. Women being forced in competition. In patriarchal societies, women often fight for limited resource, especially when wealth and power are controlled by the man. The stepmother fears losing status, security, and control. Her cruelty is wrong, but it reflects the real social pressure. And the story punishes her for being strong, assertive, and dominant. All that's usually admire in men. So the stepmother becomes the warning. If a woman steps outside the ideal feminine mold, she becomes a villain.
Hmm. Let's go deeper. Rico, what does the story say about beauty?
All right, about beauty. In this world, beauty is means everything. Looks is everything. With looks, uh, you can be accepted in job, or you can get more privilege than who not had good looks. So beauty is everything in this story. Cinderella is described as a naturally beautiful, while her stepsister are described as unattractive. So the idea is that goodness equals beauty and ugliness equals weakness. That's a dangerous message because real life doesn't work like that. Beauty becomes a kind of moral currency. It's on our mind, but the story says that Cinderella deserves the prince because she's beautiful and gentle. It teaches children, especially young girls, that their value is tied to their appearance. And when beauty becomes a moral standard, people start judging others not by their action but their looks. So this is what happened in our world.
All right, Ridwan. Next question. Does Cinderella have agency, real decision or making power?
Not really. Almost nothing in the story happens because of her choice. She really doesn't stand up to her stepmother, and she doesn't leave the house, or she confront the situation herself. She just waits. Even her chance to go to the ball is given by the fairy godmother, not earned through her own action. The her epic ending also just happens because the prince finds her. So from a narrative standpoint, she the protagonist, but not the agent. Things happen to her not because of her, but in modern storytelling, this is considered a weak character arc.
Nice. Rico, let's widen the scope. What can modern reader learn from reading Cinderella critically?
So they can learn that stories, even children's stories, shape our beliefs. Cinderella teaches ideas about beauty, gender, love, class, and morality. Reading critically doesn't mean rejecting the story. It means recognizing its influence. So we can enjoy the magic and the nostalgia and the fantasy, but still understand how these narratives affect our expectation in real life. Critical reading allows us to separate the fantasy from the ideology. So we can appreciate the fairy tale while being aware of its limitation and its cultural baggage.
Good. Now, Ridwan, here a broader question. If we applied the same analysis to other varieties, would the results be similar?
Oh, definitely. Many classic fairy tales reflect the same patterns, like passive heroines, the dominant male savior, marriage as the ultimate reward, and how the beauty measure of the girl's work. In Sleeping Beauty, for example, the girl actually sleeps through the entire story. In Snow White, her kindness is tied to her beauty, and she is saved by the prince that barely knows her. So these patterns are accident. They are the reflection of the social norms of the time. Applying to feminist view or more physical analysis, this expose this pattern and help us to understand why they persist in modern media.
All right. That's big question for Rico. If you were to modernize Cinderella, how would you change the story?
Okay, that's a big one, but for me, maybe I will give Cinderella agency. Like she will actively make decision to change her own life rather than waiting for magic or a prince. But she could be smart, creative, or ambitious, not just silently kind. The prince wouldn't be a savior. He will be a partner she choose, not someone who chose her. And instead of beauty being her defining trait, I'd focus on her resilience or intelligence, because the story could still have a magic and romance, but the message would shift from wait to be rescued to take control of your life.
Yeah, that was an amazing and very deep discussion. Huge thanks to Ridwan and Diko for the thoughtful insights. And of course, thanks to my co-host, Furkan. So, thanks everyone. See you next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you next time.